The room rose in near-perfect unison as Queen Camilla entered Windsor Castle's crimson drawing room. Chairs shifted, conversations died, and every face turned toward the doorway. Every person stood, except Princess Anne. She remained seated, one hand resting on a closed briefing folder, her expression calm and unyielding. Camilla stopped mid-step. What appeared to be a simple breach of courtesy instantly became something far more dangerous, a public challenge between two of the monarchy's most powerful women. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The silence tightened around them. Senior royal representatives, military patrons, palace advisors, and members of the extended family had gathered for a formal Windsor reception, meant to display unity before King Charles arrived. The Crimson Drawing Room, a ceremonial reception chamber used for official royal gatherings, had suddenly become the setting for a challenge no one could dismiss. Camilla was there to receive the room as queen, and everyone understood why that mattered. Her authority depended not only on her title, but on whether the family visibly accepted it. A palace equerry quietly gave the signal to rise. An equerry is a royal officer who assists senior members of the family during official duties and helps maintain ceremony. William stood at once. Sophie followed, lowering her eyes as tension spread. Edward straightened beside her, while courtiers pushed back their chairs together. Anne alone remained seated, making the refusal too deliberate to excuse as distraction, weakness, or misunderstanding. Camilla waited for her to correct herself. She did not. The Princess Royal met the Queen's stare, closed the folder beneath her hand, and stayed in place. A newly circulated palace instruction had required senior royals to stand for Camilla even when Charles was absent. Yet Anne had chosen this exact moment to reject it. The Queen's private secretary moved closer and murmured that the room was waiting. Anne answered without raising her voice. The crown commands respect. Respect itself cannot be commanded. William watched her carefully, now certain the gesture had been planned. Sophie looked away again. Edward stiffened as Camilla resumed walking, her jaw tight and her anger barely contained. Within minutes, she ordered an aide to tell Charles that the insult could not be ignored. Two versions of the confrontation began spreading through Windsor before the king crossed the threshold. One described Anne as a defender of royal principle. The other accused her of humiliating his wife. As the doors closed behind Camilla, the question was no longer why Anne had remained seated, what each woman believed she would lose by surrendering first. To understand why one unmoved chair shook Windsor Castle, it was necessary to understand the women on either side of it. Camilla had spent decades fighting for recognition, legitimacy, and a secure place beside Charles. Anne had spent her entire life proving that service mattered more than ceremony. One woman saw standing as recognition of the crown's authority. The other saw the demand as a test of personal submission. Neither was prepared to admit that the moment had wounded her. Camilla entered a private retiring room and pulled off one glove with a sharp motion. A retiring room is a secluded palace space where a royal can pause between official duties. She turned to her private secretary and asked why Anne believed ordinary protocol did not apply to her. The Queen's voice carried buried pain. She had survived public rejection, family doubt, and endless comparisons before becoming Charles's crowned wife. Now one unmoved chair suggested that her place beside him was still conditional. The humiliation cut deeper than anger. Camilla feared not only that the Princess Royal had challenged her, but that everyone nearby had silently approved. Their uneasy reactions replayed in her mind. The Queen had achieved the title she once seemed unlikely to hold, yet triumph suddenly felt fragile. Recognition meant little if the family offered it only when ceremony forced them. Anne stood near a Windsor window, while Timothy Lawrence asked whether the gesture had been worth the consequences. He knew the Princess Royal rarely acted for applause, and she knew his question carried concern. She answered that obedience without principle eventually became surrender. As Queen Elizabeth II's only daughter, Anne had built her standing through service and direct speech. She had never needed softness to prove loyalty, and she would not use ceremony to disguise doubt. The distinction mattered. Anne had never objected to rising for Camilla during state occasions beside Charles. State occasions are formal national events, where royal behavior follows fixed ceremonial rules. Her objection concerned the new instruction extending that demand into planning meetings, smaller receptions, and family gatherings. Courtesy, she believed, had become compulsory deference. William understood the difference during a private conversation, preserved in his aide's written account. He believed the Queen deserved dignity. He feared palace officials were manufacturing gestures that should have come freely. He knew challenging it could damage Charles's marriage and divide the household. Conflict had become larger than wounded pride. He now asked whether Camilla's authority flowed naturally from the crown or had to be built around her by command. And beneath Anne's refusal waited an earlier exchange, so personal that witnesses later called it the point of no return. Anne's refusal at Windsor did not begin when Camilla entered the room. It began 3 days earlier, behind the closed doors of Clarence House, during what should have been a routine discussion about ceremonial precedence. A printed instruction lay between them. Camilla wanted senior royals to rise whenever she entered an official palace gathering, even in Charles's absence. Anne read the final paragraph twice, placed the paper down, and warned that dignity granted by position could be destroyed when demanded personally. Camilla sat across from her with 2 senior household officials and a ceremonial advisor, waiting in tense silence. Clarence House was the royal residence from which the Queen's staff managed many of her official duties, while ceremonial precedence meant the rules deciding who received formal recognition and in what order. The meeting mattered because the proposed instruction would affect upcoming receptions and investiture-related events, formal occasions where people receive honors from a senior royal. The Queen slid the protocol memorandum toward Anne. A protocol memorandum is a written set of instructions explaining how royals and staff are expected to behave during official occasions. When the Queen enters, the family must set the example, she said. Princess Royal answered that she would always honor the sovereign institution, but she would not take part in a personal display designed to measure loyalty. Camilla's expression hardened. She heard the reply not as criticism of one document, but as a denial of everything she had fought to become. Then she asked whether Anne would have remained seated for Queen Elizabeth II. The late monarch's name changed the temperature of the room instantly. The Queen had taken a disagreement about protocol and placed Anne's mother at the center of it. Anne leaned forward, her restraint beginning to crack. She answered that her mother had never needed to circulate instructions demanding that her own family prove respect in private rooms. Camilla did not retreat. She insisted that consistency protected the dignity of the crown. Yet Anne believed the wording protected one person's insecurity instead. The ceremonial advisor tried to calm them, describing the memorandum as a harmless clarification. Anne pointed to the final sentence. It authorized aides to correct any royal who failed to rise. That clause transformed courtesy into enforcement, and both women understood it. Camilla refused to remove the wording. Anne placed the document beside her and warned that if the order was enforced at Windsor, everyone would see what compulsory loyalty looked like. Queen believed witnesses would force her to retreat. Anne arrived knowing she would remain seated. When they finally faced each other after the reception, neither could call the protest accidental, and neither came prepared to apologize. Confrontation occurred less than 20 minutes after the reception ended. Camilla asked Anne to enter a small adjoining salon, dismissed the waiting aides, and closed the door herself. There were no courtiers to soften their words, and no ceremonial music to cover the silence. Camilla stood beside the fireplace and demanded to know whether the humiliation had been planned. Anne did not deny it. She only asked why a confident queen required a room full of relatives to prove her authority on the command. The silence sharpened. The salon stood near the state apartments, the formal rooms used by the monarch for major ceremonies and official receptions. But this meeting carried no public protection. Departing guests faded beyond the heavy doors, while the two women faced each other without advisors, relatives, or secretaries to intervene. Camilla insisted that the disputed instruction protected consistency during engagements, conducted without Charles. To her, Uncertainty about how the family should receive the queen risked weakening the dignity of the crown itself. Anne refused to accept that argument. She said no one had questioned Camilla's title or her place beside the king. What she rejected was the transformation of family courtesy into an enforced performance, monitored by private secretaries and equerries, royal officers, who assist senior family members during official duties. Princess Royal warned that once gestures were recorded and corrected, respect stopped being voluntary. Camilla stepped closer. "Would you have done that to your mother?" she asked. Anne held her gaze. "My mother would never have asked me to perform respect for an audience." The words landed hard. Camilla accused her of using Queen Elizabeth II's memory as a weapon whenever she wished to, suggest that the present court lacked the strength of the previous reign. The Queen's anger carried years of comparison, rejection, and doubt. Anne's answer had touched the fear beneath her crown, that no matter what title she held, she would still be measured against the woman who came before her. Anne then disclosed that two younger royals had approached her privately after receiving the protocol note. According to their documented accounts, both feared that an ordinary mistake could be recorded as deliberate disrespect. Camilla realized the memorandum had circulated farther than she intended. Her fury shifted toward the officials responsible, yet she still refused to admit that the policy itself had crossed a line. Camilla ended the meeting by declaring that Charles would settle the matter. Anne answered that his decision would define far more than the treatment of one queen. The dispute now moved toward the only person capable of imposing judgment. But whichever woman the king defended, the monarchy would pay a price. Charles found the protocol memorandum waiting on his desk, beside two handwritten accounts of the confrontation. He read Camilla's version first, then Anne's. For several minutes, he said nothing. Finally, he removed his glasses, placed his pen across the disputed instruction, and asked the question no courtier wanted to answer. Had his household protected the queen's dignity, or had it attempted to create obedience where genuine respect should already have existed? The decision belonged to him alone. A protocol memorandum is a written document setting out the conduct expected during royal duties, and as king, Charles could approve it, amend it, or withdraw it completely. Yet each option carried a cost. Supporting Camilla could appear to punish Anne for defending principle. Supporting his sister could leave his wife believing that her place beside him remained fragile. Anne possessed no control over the throne, but her influence ran deeper than rank. For decades of service, blunt honesty, and loyalty to Queen Elizabeth II had given the Princess Royal enormous moral authority. Charles understood that disciplining her would not silence the dispute, would turn her resistance into a symbol and force the family to choose sides. King read the correction clause again. It allowed aides to confront any royal who failed to rise, effectively turning private behavior into something officials could monitor. He recoiled, marked the sentence with his pen, and set the document down without signing it. Camilla entered the study, carrying years of buried hurt. She told Charles that refusing to support her would validate everyone who had once treated her as temporary, lesser, or unworthy of the crown. The Queen did not ask merely for protection. She wanted proof that her husband would defend the position she had sacrificed so much to reach. Charles took her hand, but he promised no punishment. His hesitation wounded Camilla more than rejection, because it revealed that part of him understood Anne. She withdrew her hand and asked whether her dignity mattered only when it caused no difficulty. William later advised Charles, during a private conversation recorded in an aide's written summary. The prince warned that disciplining Anne would make an internal dispute resemble a constitutional crisis, a conflict appearing to threaten how royal authority itself operated. He also feared it would make Camilla seem dependent on enforcement rather than respect. A senior courtier then confirmed, through a documented briefing, that the correction clause had been strengthened. After the Queen's team reviewed the first draft, guidance had quietly become a test of compliance. Charles froze the memorandum until further notice. Camilla wanted Anne corrected, while Anne believed the document had already exposed a dangerous shift. Before the king could announce his judgment, the consequences escaped the study, divided the households, changed invitations, and left the queen isolated inside the court meant to support her. By the following morning, Windsor appeared calm, but the machinery beneath it had begun to fracture. Engagement briefings were altered, seating plans were reconsidered, and aides stopped speaking freely when members of the opposite household entered the room. Camilla received the revised schedule over breakfast and immediately noticed Anne's name had been removed from a private luncheon. She looked at the empty place beside Charles and understood that the dispute was no longer confined to one chair. Queen's staff had tried to prevent another confrontation by separating the two women at future receptions, military ceremonies, and family gatherings. Engagement briefings are written schedules explaining where royals must appear, whom they will meet, and how each event will proceed. The changes were meant to protect Camilla from another public refusal, but they created a deeper problem. Every altered invitation made the conflict more visible and suggested that the palace could no longer trust two senior royals to share the same room. Camilla finished breakfast alone, folded the schedule in half, and asked whether Anne had demanded the separation. Her secretary admitted that the Queen's own staff had made the decision. The answer left her feeling managed rather than defended. She had fought to secure her place within the monarchy. Yet now the people around her were treating her like someone too fragile to face opposition. Anne reacted with anger when Edward told her about the revised plans. Princess Royal insisted that she had challenged an instruction, not abandoned her duties, or refused to work beside Camilla. Edward warned that silence would allow others to define her intentions. She answered that the palace had created the division by trying to hide it. Sophie approached Camilla privately and urged restraint. A trusted confidant explained that Anne's resistance concerned the wording of the order, not the legitimacy of the Queen's title or marriage. Camilla rejected the distinction. She told Sophie that a public gesture carried personal meaning, especially after years of being treated as an outsider. The mediator understood her pain, but she also saw how that pain was hardening into control. Danger deepened when a copy of the frozen protocol memorandum disappeared from a restricted briefing folder. Palace officials feared someone intended to leak the correction clause and portray Camilla as demanding submission from the family. William then discovered, through confidential resignation drafts, that several staff members were preparing to leave rather than be blamed for enforcing or resisting the policy. The household was close to collapse. Charles finally summoned Anne in private, not to discipline her, to ask for help protecting the crown. That invitation opened the first path toward peace, because the king was finally prepared to hear his sister without Camilla, courtiers, or protocol standing between them. Charles met Anne after dusk, in a small sitting room, overlooking Windsor's darkened grounds. There were no red boxes on the table, no private secretaries by the door, no formal titles between them. For the first time since the refusal, they spoke simply as brother and sister. Charles admitted that he feared Camilla would interpret any retreat as abandonment. Anne answered that protecting someone from humiliation did not require supporting every demand made in their name. King had chosen a private family room rather than an official office, because palace procedure had already distorted the conflict. Red boxes are secure cases used to carry official government and royal papers. In their absence, made his intention clear. He did not want a formal judgment shaped by advisors. He wanted the truth from the one person who had known him before the crown separated duty from family. Anne did not hide from what she had done. Princess Royal admitted that remaining seated had been deliberately visible, and that the gesture had embarrassed Camilla before the household. Yet she reminded Charles that her private objection at Clarence House had been dismissed. Silence, she said, would only have allowed the disputed order to become permanent. Charles hesitated before asking the question that had troubled him most. Did Anne hate his wife? She answered immediately. She did not hate the Queen, nor did she deny the dignity of her position. But affection and respect could not require silence whenever rank became personal control. The institution, Anne warned, weakened itself when it confused loyalty with obedience. Confession came slowly. Charles explained that Camilla's sensitivity had been shaped by decades of public judgment, and by the fear that parts of the family still viewed her as someone who entered royal life through damage rather than duty. He had watched her reach the crown while carrying old rejection. He could not bear to make her feel abandoned again. Anne softened, but she did not retreat. She promised to stand beside Camilla at every official duty, defend her title publicly, and reject attacks on her legitimacy. Yet she would not submit to a private loyalty test monitored by palace officials. Princess Royal then offered a solution. Remove the enforcement clause, limit standing guidance to clearly defined official ceremonies, and allow family gatherings to follow personal courtesy rather than written command. Charles studied the memorandum, folded it once, and tore the unsigned approval page in half. There would be no punishment. The decision was final. Peace remained fragile. The king still had to face Camilla and persuade her that withdrawing the instruction was not the same as choosing Anne over his queen. As he carried the torn page toward her rooms, private crisis was already becoming a public symbol, far beyond Windsor. The story reached the public through a single unforgettable image: the Windsor reception room, filled with standing figures, while Anne remained seated near the center, a closed folder resting beneath one hand. By sunrise, the photograph dominated broadcasts and front pages. To some, she looked principled and fearless. To others, she appeared cold and openly disrespectful. But the image's power came from its simplicity. One chair had become a national argument about authority, loyalty, and earned respect. The palace moved quickly, but not quickly enough. Officials released a restrained statement describing the incident as a private misunderstanding involving ceremonial guidance. Ceremonial guidance means the formal rules explaining how members of the royal family should behave during official occasions. The wording was designed to calm the country, yet its careful language only deepened suspicion. People wanted to know why a simple gesture required written instructions, and why Anne had chosen to resist them publicly. Broadcasters divided the dispute into two fierce camps. One side argued that Camilla's position as queen required consistent recognition from every working royal. The other insisted that Anne had challenged an unnecessary expansion of palace protocol, the established system governing royal conduct and precedence. What began inside Windsor now touched a deeper national nerve, whether respect belonged automatically to rank or had to be earned through character. Outside Buckingham Palace, a crowd gathered beneath the Victoria Memorial. One woman raised a folding chair above her head, while another shouted that no queen should require written orders to command respect. The moment spread across social media, turning Anne's refusal into a symbol far larger than the private disagreement that caused it. A national newspaper pushed the conflict even further. Its front page carried the Windsor photograph beneath the headline, "The Royal Who Would Not Rise," placing Camilla's frozen expression beside Anne's unmoved posture. The image made the dispute appear like a contest, with a winner and a loser. Camilla watched the morning coverage beside Charles. When a commentator called Anne the guardian of Queen Elizabeth II's standards, the Queen switched off the television and asked whether she would forever be compared with a dead monarch. The king offered no easy answer, and his silence wounded her again. Palace officials confirmed through an internal written briefing that the enforcement clause would be removed, but they delayed the announcement until Charles had spoken directly with his wife. Anne rejected suggestions from her staff that she issue a triumphant statement. She said her purpose had been to stop the instruction, not defeat Camilla. The world had chosen its sides. Yet the monarchy's final verdict would come from a quieter moment, when anger, pride, and survival met behind one closed door. Camilla listened without interruption, as Charles explained that the standing instruction would be rewritten. Correction clause would disappear. Formal ceremonies would retain clear protocol, and private royal gatherings would no longer be governed by compulsory gestures. For several seconds, she stared at the torn approval page in his hand. She had wanted Anne corrected. Instead, the policy itself had been judged excessive. The decision hurt, but it also offered Camilla something forced obedience never could: an opportunity to command respect without demanding proof. Charles made the resolution final. No disciplinary action would be taken against the Princess Royal, and the palace would issue clarified guidance, separating official ceremony from private family courtesy. Clarified guidance meant a revised set of rules explaining exactly when formal royal conduct was required. New wording preserved the Queen's dignity at state occasions, while removing the authority of aides to monitor, correct, or record relatives during informal gatherings. Camilla accused the king of rewarding public defiance. She told him that Anne had embarrassed her before the family and allowed the country to question her authority. Charles answered that punishment would not erase that humiliation. It would only strengthen the belief that his wife needed fear to secure respect. The Queen resisted those words, but she could not dismiss them. The next family luncheon delivered the answer. Camilla entered without an equerry, giving the usual signal. An equerry is a royal officer who assists senior family members and helps coordinate ceremonial conduct. No chair moved by command. No aide watched for disobedience. Anne rose voluntarily. Princess Royal walked toward Camilla and stopped before her. "This is given freely," she said. The Queen held her gaze for a long moment. Pain remained between them, but so did understanding. "And it means more," she answered. Neither woman offered a false apology. Anne did not regret challenging the order, and Camilla did not pretend the wound had disappeared. Yet both accepted a boundary. Princess Royal would honor the office, while the Queen would never again turn private courtesy into a compulsory display of loyalty. Charles restored their shared engagements and ordered both households to stop rearranging schedules. Officials recovered the missing protocol copy. No staff member faced punishment for the confusion. Camilla emerged bruised but stronger. Anne emerged not as a victor over her, but as a defender of a principle. One woman's refusal to stand did not bring the monarchy down. It compelled the crown to stand for dignity, without coercion, loyalty without fear, and respect that no palace order could manufacture. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.